Okay, so first question, what do you guys know about web applications? Okay, you might think, why do we have to start with web application? Why can't we directly go to Spring Boot? Why can't we just directly start, you know, uh, working on Spring Boot, creating some microservices, right? Why do we have to start with web application? Well, there is a connectivity between everything. I'll tell you. First, what is your application? I mean, like, what is the knowledge about? What do you guys have information about web applications? So, what kind of tools you use to develop? Anybody? Okay, let me share a PPT presentation, and I'll only start. Let me into the presentation mode. Okay, first, what is the need for frameworks? Before going into frameworks, right? Let's see what is a web application, right? I'm assuming everyone in our session might have used any web application. For this session, let's take an example of Expedia website to book your flights, or to book your vacations, or to book your, the hotel if you want to stay, right? Have you ever wondered how these web application work? What is the architecture behind that, right? So we can access a web application from our browser, and obviously we need a server somewhere. It has been deployed. The web application has been deployed, right? And we will be accessing it over our web browser. It can be even app as well. It doesn't matter. But it's not whenever you access over app, it's not a web application. It will be called as app. It may be in iOS or Android, anything, right? How are these web applications being developed, right? What is the story behind this? What is the story behind this J2EE, right? Let's start by a simple servlet program. Okay, you may ask me why we are going to servlet again. There is a connection behind why we are going to develop in servlet, right? I'll tell you. Because our whatever the spring framework we are going to discuss in this session, let it be Spring Core, let it be Spring Boot, or just normal Spring, whatever the modules, it is based on servlets. What do I mean by that? The core is servlets, and the community, the Spring framework developers built on top of the servlets. So for that, we need to know what are the flaws in the servlet, and why we have to go for some other a framework kind of structure, why we have to use that, right? Let's start. I'm assuming you guys know how to create a simple dynamic web application in Eclipse. So it will be better if you guys type with me. I hope you have access to everything what you need for. If you want me to wait, I will wait. Please let me know if I'm going too fast. I'll reduce the pace as well. Okay. Let me create a new dynamic web application. I'll name it Servlet. So before going here, so everybody know how to install. I mean, I'm assuming everybody has their setup ready. So if anybody like doesn't have a setup and proper JDK setup properly, or Eclipse or Maven, anything, please let me know. I'll wait for you guys to do that. Okay, so I'll take that as yes.
Yeah, Harish, could you please wait for 5-10 minutes, because I don't have that server installed in my Eclipse.
Okay, do you guys want me to show that how to do that, or is it okay if you guys can do it by.
No, I know that, but I need time to install it.
Sure. Guys, please let me know when you are ready so that we can continue. Is there anybody who haven't worked on any kind of databases in this session? Can I take it as yes that everybody worked with at least any kind of database, any RDBMS, let it be MySQL or Oracle or anything, pgadmin, Postgres? Okay, cool.
Hello. Yeah,
Yes,
hi Hari. Done with the installation.
cool. So for this project, we may need a Tomcat. Please be ready with the Tomcat. I'm using 8.5, and for this session, I'm using Java 8. I'm not going to Java 15 version as of now. Okay. Is there any freshers in this session, like who doesn't have any experience, who wants to know um, from the beginning?
Yes, I am a front-end developer, so I am new to these things.
Okay, so you never worked on any kind of database?
No, just a little bit. Means 6 months of experience in database.
And anybody else?
Yeah, me also. I'm working as a front-end developer, but I have a knowledge on database.
Okay. So because we will be using Java to connect to our database, basically we will be using so I don't know what kind of technology you worked with. So here we will be using Java to connect. So if you are using if you use Node.js, you can connect with Node.js. I don't know what kind of technology you use, so I'm not commenting on that. But if you want to see how it works, I'll show you in this tutorial, in this session. At the same time, if you do not have any idea about like the statements, what we are going to write, the CURD operations on database, I'm happy to show that as well. That's why I'm asking these questions. please feel free to ask me what you guys need. If you do not have any experience, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, please download Tomcat. We'll be using Tomcat for this, and let me know once you guys are done with that.
Will you please repeat the steps? I joined a little bit late. Sorry.
Hi Harish, I think I have some network issue from my laptop to download Tomcat. So for today I can continue like this. From tomorrow I can practice what you are saying. Is this fine?
Yeah, sure, no problem. If you want, I can share it. Let me find a way to share it for you.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I have that option here.
That's fine for me today. I can set up today and I will continue with your sessions from tomorrow. I can see for today like this.
Okay. So I just came to know from our host that we have some freshers who doesn't have an experience with Java, who got just trained on Java. Is there any problem if I start from the beginning? Like, oh, there is a chart. I'm sorry. Yeah, sure. Yes,
No
Subhash.
issue.
Hey, thanks, Haris. Hey, hi everyone. This is Subhash here. I'm from your L&D team. Thanks for joining. So Harish, so we have extended this invite little late. I would say very late yesterday. So you might see few joining, few entry around 10 o'clock, so 10:30, right? So this is only happened in the day one. So just thought of informing you. And so this is to all the audience. So this program is basically designed from the scratch, where people, if they don't know the prerequisite, only have the knowledge on the Java, so Haris will help you with its maximum extent to make you understand on the prerequisite, and then you can go with the flow of Spring Boot and microservice, right? So please uh, support on that. Okay, few of you might be knowing those topics and might feel it's a repetition for you, but my sincere request, don't consider that as like the training is going very slow. It's not like that. The model is like that because there are other participant also, other of your colleague also who is attending this training. Probably they don't know those models, so it's required for them. So for first 1 days, 2 day or 3 day, I would say the first 2 days might feel you might feel it's a repetition for you, but kindly bear with that. So from day 3, it will be on the flow of Spring Boot microservices. Correct me if I need to add anything, Harish.
No, that's perfect, Suhas. Actually, I was thinking about like to go into Spring Boot, we need to understand the fundamentals of Spring basically. Basically, the annotation,
Exactly.
the IOC, the dependency injection. Without that knowledge, if I directly start with Spring Boot, it will be like don't know what is happening, like how we are creating objects, how it is auto configuring itself. Like we don't even know like from where the objects are coming, how it is working, right? So I just
Correct.
want to give an overview, like before going into a deep dive into the Spring Boot. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of what exactly is Spring, what kind of problem it is solving, and what is the problem with Spring, why we are going to Spring Boot. So I just wanted to start there.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So that's the approach. So I think everyone will be comfortable with that. But few might feel it's a repetition because they might be knowing the concept. But my request, don't take it on. I mean, if you know the topic, don't hold for that. I mean, but continue the batches. It's not like if you know, so you can drop off there. There might be many topics which is very new on that. So please continue with the batch, and please be at that time also, right? You might feel it repetition. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Harish.
Okay, we have already shared the information with you guys. What are the prerequisites? Anyway, let me open that. So these are the prerequisites. So we'll be using JDK, we'll be using Maven. You can go with your choice. Basically, you can use STS, you can use Eclipse, you can, if you are familiar with IntelliJ, more than happy to do that. But I'll be using Eclipse IDE. Anyway, I'll show you how to create a Spring Boot with STS as well when we get there. But I'll be still using Eclipse IDE. Okay. So for this session, since I'm starting with the Servlet and then I'm going to Spring Boot and Spring and then Spring Boot. So I'll be trying to show you guys how to create a web application, what are the flaws in the servlets, and why we had to go for a Spring framework. So for that purpose, I'll be using Apache Tomcat to run my web application. And then for our backend, we'll be using MySQL. So if you don't have, please try to install them. And I'll be showing how to create a web application by using jar files without using Maven for this session alone. But when we move towards the Spring Boot, we will be using Maven as well, because freshers don't know what exactly is Maven, why I need to configure this. So they might be from a background where we just need to copy paste this jar file and run it. So I just wanted to show them like how it is done. Okay, sure. Any questions on that, guys? Okay. So I'm assuming everybody is
Hello?
with their, yes, please.
Harish, can I ask something?
Yes.
Actually, I can see the recording going on. So later on, since it is new for us, if we want to refer to anything, we will be getting this recording or not?
I'll share it. I'll share it. Sorry, I'll share it with the team.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes. So I had a request from somebody that they joined very late and they asked me to repeat. I guess this is what I started with. If you still have any questions, I'm happy to start from the beginning again. Cool. Okay. So let's start with a simple dynamic web application. Okay. So whoever joined late, I'm going to create again. So right click on the left pane, just dynamic web project, select your name, whatever the name. For this tutorial, I'm going with the first servlet application. Okay. So we have an option of generating the web.xml that is called as deployment descriptor. I'll talk about that. So I'm checking it. Let's finish this. So, okay. I have my web.xml in web.inf folder. Okay. So what is this? Why do we call it as a deployment descriptor? Right. So whatever the information we are putting here, that is related to the deployment, how the application has to behave, where it has to start, what is a request, what is a URL format which I'm specifying for my application, how it has to handle the request. Those kind of information, I'll be placing it here. So if you see it right now, so there is just a welcome file, whatever it is, index.html, index.jsp, default.html, default.jsp. So if my application, my Tomcat server finds this welcome file, whatever the welcome file we specified here in the web content folder, it'll by default it will show me that. Let's create a simple index.html file. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm inserting the name as index. And the body is, let's say, I'm writing my name. Okay, let's try to run this. Okay, before going here, whoever hasn't worked on any kind of servers, how do I add a server? I'll show you guys. Okay, first you have to, okay, add and remove. Oh, this is related to projects. My bad, guys. New, go to new. Okay, server. That is because I already added a server. For somebody who haven't added any server, there will be a link, configure server. So you can click on that. Okay. So I told I will be using Java Tomcat 8 for this one. So I'm selecting Tomcat 8.5 and I'm clicking next. That's already configured. So I took it from my local. So if you haven't downloaded, please download that, and you can find if you browse to the appropriate location. Okay. And just finally click on finish. Now let's try to run this application on our Tomcat server. You can see the logs here. If it fails to start, it will show you why it is failing. You can always fix it. It's still in the starting phase. Okay, right. So if you see that I haven't configured anything, I just specified my index.html and I placed it under the web content folder. My Tomcat, it's basically a servlet container. Okay, I'm calling it a servlet container because it handles the servlets. Okay, we'll talk about that when we get there. Right. So I'm able to display whatever the content which I displayed in my index.html. I just specified my name, right? That is because in my deployment descriptor, I specified the welcome file as index.html. It can be HTML, it can be JSP, anything, because I specified that, right? Now, any questions on that? Okay, moving forward. For this, our first application, let's try to create a simple login page. Okay, very simple login page. I'm not going to go in detail about this, but very simple login page. How do we get the request parameters to a servlet? Okay, how do I configure my servlet just to see that? Okay, so for this purpose, I need a servlet because I don't have any framework as of now, right? So I need to go in the legacy application mode. So I need to know what can be done. What can be done to get my requirements into place, to achieve my requirements. So let's see that. So if you guys are not understanding any part of what I'm talking, please stop me and ask me. I'm happy to explain you guys. I'm repeating this again and again. Okay. Now I need to configure a servlet to just handle the mappings. What is meant by mappings? First, let me configure a servlet. I'll tell you what is meant by mapping. Okay, how do I configure servlet? There is a tag for that. Just use servlet. Okay, spelling mistake. Okay, now what do I need in that? I need a servlet name. What is my name? Let's say I'm naming it after my functionality. Let's say I need a login, right? Let's do login. So I did my servlet name. What is a class? Okay, what is the class it refers to? Let's say, let's name it, class name itself is login, but I'll be placing under a specific package. Okay, let's say for this purpose I'll be doing something like com dot first servlet. Okay, that is my package name. Okay, and what is my class name? So obviously it's login. Now I need to provide a mapping for that. So whatever the request, um, how do I forward a request to this login servlet? So that can be defined here by using a mapping tag. Okay. So I'm assuming that everybody work with XML. So for every open tag, there should be a class close tag in the XML. So that's why I'm not telling that sentence. Okay, now let's see what is my servlet mapping. So I can, let's say I'm naming it as login, just to maintain the consistency everywhere. I'm using the login name. Now, what is the URL pattern? So I will say /login. Okay. Now, how do I know the URL pattern? So that's basically whatever ends with here. That is my URL pattern. Okay. That's my URL pattern /login. Now, here I configure our servlet, right? But I need to do the same Java code to handle the requests. So for that, I need to create a servlet, right? Let me create a servlet. Before that, I need to create a package, and my package is com dot. What did I name here? First servlet dot. Okay, that's all. That's my package. Under that, I'm going to create a servlet. Okay, what is servlet? Servlet is nothing but a Java class, but what makes it servlet? Okay, we will see that.
Hi, Harish. Sorry for interrupt.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe in that web.xml file, it's not servlet mapping tag. It's maybe servlet name tag because we have already servlet mapping tag.
Sorry, my bad.
And in that,
That's a mistake. Mistake from my end. It's a servlet name. That's why it is complaining. My bad. Thanks
thank you.
for correcting me, guys. I know. I checked that.
One question.
Yes, please.
Yeah, how can we add a web.xml letter after creating a project?
All you have to do is create a web.xml and paste it under web content folder, which is under web.inf. That's all. If you're not checking that box, let's say if you're not asking your Eclipse to create this web.xml for you, okay, all you can
Yes,
do
yes.
here is create a new file and you can add it.
Okay.
.xml. I have it already. That's why it's specifying. You can add it. You can always
Yes. Okay.
any file there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. My servlet is login, right? But what makes it a servlet? Basically, all the servlets needs to be extended from a super servlet. What is that? That is HTTP servlet. Okay, let's see how it works. I'm not adding in any interfaces because that's I'll just do it in the regular way because it's a class. ENDS extends HTTP. It's here. It's in the java x.servlet.http package. Okay, now I did my servlet. So how it has to handle? So what kind of request it has to handle, right? Before coming here, let's create a form for our index. So let's see whether it is a get operation or a post operation, what kind of operation we are trying to do that. Based on that, we will come back to the servlet again and we will do it. Okay, I'll remove it here, my name, I don't want my name here. So I'll just create a simple div. Inside that div, I will have a form tag. Okay, I'm not trying to add any CSS here. It's not in our scope, but if you want, I can show you how to do that. So let's, what is an action? Basically, the action goes to the URL mapping. So the URL mapping which I used is login. Okay, so that's why I'm using the same mapping here, right? And what is a method? So remember my previous statement about like what kind of requests we are handling with the servlet. So basically, I'm going to do, it's a post, right? So we'll be having username and password. So I'll be going for the post because it's a sensitive data, right? If it is a get, you can see that in the URL parameters here. So that is not allowed with the when we are trying to send a sensitive data. That is not recommended, right? So that's why I'm going with post. So what do I need here? I just need two fields, okay, two input parameters. Okay, what is my type? Type equal to text. What is your name? I'm using name equal to, if I want I can use ID as well. I'll show you that. I'll be using the same. If you want a placeholder, that is HTML5 attribute, we can use it, but for now I'm not doing that. So what is it actually? I'm asking for username. Okay. So I'm taking the password, the type as password, because I am not allowed to show my characters, password characters here. Okay, so but how can I call a servlet, right? I need to submit this to my servlet. How can I do that? For that I need a button. So every form needs to be submitted. So either it can be using a JavaScript or you can directly use the input type as button. That's up to you. But for this purpose, we are just doing the input type as button. Basically, and button type equal to submit. I can specify any name, like maybe ID is login or something like that. Okay. I need an end tag for that. I can directly close it. And I will place the name here. What is the name of the button? Okay. So now let's try to do our servlet. So it's a post operation, right? So by default, we have some HTTP methods like get, put, post. So basically, these are the CURD operations. Basically, we call as CURD operations. So post needs to be handled by HTTP post, right? So for that, we will be using do post method. So it's a, okay, I'll type and I'll speak about that. It's a protected method. Protected. We're not going to return anything. Okay, but it will take some parameters. What are the parameters it will take? It will take HTTP servlet request, because whatever the request we are getting, we need to handle that, right? So the parameters and everything present in that, and the response, what we are going to respond, that is HTTP servlet response. Okay. Okay. Now let's try to get the parameters, whatever we are posting to our servlet. Okay, right. String username equal to, so basically it's a parameter, right? So I'll be getting that request dot get parameter, and whatever the name I have given there. So I gave this username, so I'll be getting the value in here. String password equal to request dot get parameter, and whatever the name I gave there, I've given it as password. That's good. Right, now I got this. So how do I validate my username and password? For this we need database connectivity. So that's what I asked in our first this one, like, do everybody has experience working with database? So I'm assuming that as S, so I'm going directly to my database. Okay, so if anybody has any doubts on how are we creating a table, how a database exists, I will be showing you that, guys. Please ask me. I'll be using my workbench here. So for this purpose, okay.
Harish, actually, I have a knowledge on database, but could you please explain me how to connect with Java code to database?
I'll show you that. I'll show you the very basic way, and we'll talk about the Spring JDBC template and everything when we go to Spring Boot. Okay, different ways. But here we will show you the very basic way how to get the connection by using the
Okay.
connection object. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Harish.
Sure. Okay, I'll be using. I have already predefined database, but if you want, you can create one. Please let me know if you want. I can show you that. But I have already some data in it, so I'll be using this struct fleet. Okay. Now the question is, I need to get a DB connection. Okay, how can I get that? Right. For that, I'll be creating a new package, placing it under com.firstservlet dot connectors. Okay. That's basically we will be connecting with the database. That's why I've named it after connectors. Right. So I need my basically I'm connecting to MySQL, right? So I'll name it after MySQL connection. Okay. Right. So I'm not reading it from any of the properties. I'm directly hard coding it. But that is not a recommended approach, but just we'll continue with in that way for this tutorial, for this example. Okay, let's name it. Sorry, that's my bad. MySQL connection utils. So it has to be camel case. So I'll go with capital C, connection utils. Okay, right. So what do I need basically? So I need, first I need to find what kind of jar I required to connect with that. Like for JDBC connection, we need if we are connecting with Oracle or MySQL, we need a support for that. What kind of jar file? So there is a library which will help us to connect to any database. So for MySQL, what kind of library we need, right? So basically we need this MySQL connectors -java. If you want, you can download it from Google. Let me open. So if you are typing with me, please download this. So it's a MySQL connector.java. So you can download. Okay. I told you we are not using any Maven for this, so that's why I'm doing this way. When we use Maven, I'll show you how to configure the dependency in the pom.xml file. But for this example alone, we'll download. Okay. My bad. Okay. Java tools. That's a very good website to download. So you can go there. So you can download this zip file and unzip it. Okay. Now I'll be copy pasting that. Oh, sorry, I didn't extract that. My bad. I'll be pasting in this lib folder. And I'll be adding to the build path. Right. So now I have the jar file with me. So all I need to do is write the code to connect to my Java database. Right. For that, I need a host name, which tells me where my database is running. Okay. So I'll be using it in a static method because I'll be using it everywhere, right? So I cannot create object whenever I need it. So I just use it with the class name. So I'll be using the public static. So it will be returning a connection object. So it's basically, we should not go to com.mysql.jdbc. Java provides connection string for us. So it will be, you can use java.sql. Okay, so that's a connection object. So my method name will be get mysql connection. Right. So it has to return a connection object. First, we need to create a connection object for that, right? So for that purpose, I need some details about my database, where it is running, what is the port it is using, what is the username which I need to connect with, what is the password for that, right? So I'll be using string host name equal to, since it is running my local, so I'll be using localhost. If you have any anywhere, so say for example, if you are using a remote server, you can give the IP address here. Let's do this way. So I'll be using localhost, right? I'll be using localhost. And what is my DB name I'm connecting? As I told, I have predefined database because I didn't, nobody asked me to show how to create a table and how to create a database there. So I'm not doing that. So I have predefined database. I'm assuming that you guys are familiar with that. So I'm going in that way. That's my DB name.
Hi, Harish.
Yes.
Why can't we go with that creating the database and creating the table, all those things?
Okay. So you guys want me to show that? Okay, I'll do that. Okay. I can create a new schema. Why is it not loading? It's taking time. Okay, let's say first Servlet play. Okay, apply. Finish. Oh, okay. Sorry to ask you guys. I assume everybody has this MySQL workbench installed and running, right? So everybody is aware about what is MySQL workbench, right?
Yes, Harish.
Okay, sure.
Yes,
Thank you.
Harish.
Okay, so here tables, you can create a table. So it'll basically you can use a query, create table, table name, all those things. I'm assuming you know the syntaxes. So I'm just using this UI to create the table for us. So let's say my table name is login. I will go with the small L here. I'll go with the small L. And what are the column names I can select, right? Oops. Okay. So I'll be using my username. Okay. Username. Soft type. So okay, our username can have numbers and characters, right? So what is the data type that supports both numbers and characters? So I will be taking varchar. So let's say my username should not exceed 20 characters. So I'll be going with 20, right? So I'm checking primary key and not null. So what does that mean? So I'm assuming my username is a unique. Basically all the username should be unique, right? So I'm going that, and it is a not null, which means null characters are not allowed. It has to be there should be some data always in this column. So that's why I'm going that not null condition. So if you want it auto incremented, basically you can auto increment only for integer values. I mean like the numbers. We cannot go for the varchars. So I'm not checking that. For this purpose, I'll be using only username and password. Okay, I will change it to 20 again. I don't want more than that. So it's not primary key, but it has to be not null. I don't care about whether it is unique or not. Maybe multiple guys use the same username, so it's okay. It is valid, right? Okay. Now if you refresh here, so we have a table. So I don't have any data. If you want, you can use an insert query here, but I'll be using the UI to do that. Okay, my username is Harish. Password is also Harish. And that's all. So whenever I select all the records in my table, it will give me there is one record because I inserted that. So any questions on this? If you want me to show the syntax like the select statements and the insert statements, I'll be showing you if you need. But anyway, when we are executing, let's say if I insert something. Okay, let's see 1 2 3 4. Nice, one more 1 2 3 4. So it will be using the statement. You can have a look at the statement, the insert statements. Okay, right. Now I did that. Now let's come back to our application. Now I need to change the DB name. What is my DB name there? It's a first servlet. That's my DB name, right? Now what is my username? So basically whenever you create your MySQL database, it'll ask for the default username and password. So if you haven't changed anything, it'll be root and root. But if you have changed, then you need to use the whatever the default username and password you kept for your database. So for me, I changed my default password. Okay. Username equal to, I'm using the same user, root string password. equal to right. So now I have all the parameters which needed to connect to database, right? So how am I going to connect to database? For that, there is a particular steps we need to follow. In this tutorial, we will be using the very basic way of connecting. Okay, I'm not going to do any connection pooling or anything. So let's do that. So I'll be doing that in a separate method, or else we can do it here. It's not a problem. It's not a big deal. Class dot fun name. Okay. So we need to specify the driver, right? What we are using here. So that is a class dot fun name, right? What kind of driver I'm using? So basically, I'm connecting to MySQL, right? com dot mysql dot jdbc driver. So if you are using Oracle, you need to change that. The connection, the class name will change. jdbc dot. It's not the same for all the different kinds of DBMS which we have right now. Okay, based on the DBMS, you need to change this based on the driver which you're using. So we are using this MySQL here, so we need to change as per that. Okay, now it's complaining me either I have to throw exception. Okay, surround with, so I'll throw an exception. Right. So now I have the required details. So I need to form a connection URL. Okay, basically, so if you are communicating with a web service, it will be over HTTP, right? Similarly, it will be in the bits and bytes for this. So there is a connection URL. So you need to provide that JDBC colon MySQL where you are connecting. Okay, JDBC colon MySQL, and what is my host name? That is going to be my host name here. Let's say that's a host name which I already gave. Host name plus port. So at the time of installation, it might have asked me for the port. If I haven't changed any port, it will be by default. Okay. It will be by default 3306. But if you have changed, you need to use the port whatever you have given for your database. And what is my DB name? So where I have to connect, because if you open this, I have multiple databases here, right? I have multiple databases here. So I don't, my application doesn't know which one it has to connect with. So I need to specify the DB name. So I'm connecting with first servlet. So I need to specify it here. Okay, that's my DB name. So this is called as connection string. Basically, people will call it as connection string. Yeah. Now it's time to create the connection object. Okay. I'll be using a driver manager class. Dir dot. So it will provide me a method. Okay. All I need to do is provide a connection string URL and username and password for that. So let's see. This is a method. All I have to do is the URL where the connection string URL. So I can provide this connection URL and my username is username. My password is password because I configured the name password, right? Okay. It will throw an exception. So we need to handle that. I mean, it is an indication to the developer that there is a chance that if the connection establishment is not successful, it will throw an exception, right? So we need to handle those kind of exceptions, right? Now I have my connection object. I need to return that connection object to use it everywhere. Okay, that is good. So now I have my connection. Whenever I need a database connection, I just need to call this get MySQL connection method. So I'll be having that connection. Right, now let's go back to our login servlet. So here everything is good. So I'm able to get the connection, but do I have a class? Do I have some logic to read the data from database? No, not yet. So let's write that, because I need to validate my username and password against the data which is present in my database, right? So let's write that. Excuse me. Okay, for that I'll name, for just since I'm just implementing only one functionality here, I'll just name as dbutils. So that will be under my utils package. Okay, right, let's write a method. Okay, let's write a method to get the details from login, from the login table. Okay, I'll be writing a public static boolean, because I'll be returning true or false based on the validation whether the username and password matches in my table or not. So I'll be using a boolean variable, boolean check login, right? So I need to accept a connection object here, or you can directly create a call here, but I'll be accepting it from the caller class, okay, where it is being called, where it's being used, right? String username, string password, and what is my connection object? Connection con. Okay, right. So now I have everything. So we need to know about like how can I interact with my database. So now I have connection, I understood that, but how can I interact with my database? There are two kinds of classes which we need to use, the prepared statement or statement. For this purpose, we will be using prepared statement. Why? Because we need to pass parameters to that. What kind of parameters? We need to specify our username and password. Okay, let's try to build the query first. So let's I'll just name SQL, or you can query anything. So here I'm going with SQL. Okay, select. If you want, you can get fetch username and password, but I'll just do a count of star from. Where am I getting the details from? So I'll be getting the details from my table name here. What is the table name? It's a login. Okay, and is there any condition? Yes. Okay, what are my fields here? What are my, so it's a username and password. So user name equal to question mark and SSW password equal to question mark. Okay, cool. So since I am passing question marks here, which means my SQL statement has like dynamically needs to accept these kind of parameters, right? So for that purpose, I'll be using a prepared statement. Okay. So if it is a statement, you can directly execute that select count from login. That's all, because there is no interactive way. There is no dynamically, it won't accept the dynamic parameters. Okay. Prepared statement. Okay. Okay, prepared statement equal to, basically we need to handle exception here, basically SQL exception. If there is any exception in your the string which you formatted just now, the SQL query, we'll do that. So I'll be writing that in a try catch block, or we can, I'll show you the other way. Okay, so how to get my connection, how to get my prepared statement. Connection dot prepared statement, right? It's all. And I need to pass my query here. And it will give me prepared statement, right? You can either throw or surround with try catch. So for now, I'll be doing that. Okay. So now my query is expecting two parameters to be passed, that is username and password. How do I do that? So there is something called set string, based on the type of the parameter, you can set it. So I'll show you that. So in our case, both are string parameters. So that's why I'm setting a string, right? Okay, what is the, here it will accept the index. What is the index? So always it will be from the left to right. So this is first, like this is second. And if we have any more parameters, that will be like uncount and goes on like 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, right? So it's my first parameter is username here. Set string. The second one is also a string. That's why I'm going in this string way, right? Let's say if I'm accepting an int value, right? An int value. How do I do that? Set int. You can do that, right? You just need to pass set parameter int. Similarly for double or float, right? Floating points. For now we are accepting only 2, right? That is good. Now I need, now I have everything set up. I need to execute it, right? So if I execute, what will I get? I'll be getting a result set. So how? Result set rs equal to, or we can go for result set equal to execute query, right? So how do I retrieve data from a result set? So first we need to verify if there is any, if we have any anything in the result set or it is empty. So it's like a pointer. It's like a pointer moving one record at a time. Okay, let's do that. So for that purpose, I'll be using a while. I'll be using a while. So I need to verify if my result set is empty or is there any data in it. So how can I verify that? So it provides me a method to do that. Result set dot next. Okay. Now, so if it returns true, that means there exists some data. So I need to get that. In our case, we are trying to get only one variable, that is as count. So let me give a name as count, or as C. Okay, that is my name. So I'll be getting count. Okay, for that purpose, I need to have a placeholder. So I'm using int. Basically, by default, it's 0 equal to result set dot. So it's a integer, right? We are expecting int. So that's why I will be getting the int variable, right? Get int. Get int. So whatever the column name we are using here, we use it C. If you use count, you can go for count, but I use it C here, right? If you are not using anything by default, it will be count. You can take count, right? Now I have my count. So based on that, okay, I'll do a verification whether my user is present in my database or not. Return count is greater than 0. That means true, else false. So that means, so my after execution of this query, if my result set has if my result set is returning 1, that means there exists some data in it. So which matches username and password. So we will be returning true. That means it is matching. Now let's come back to our connection utils. Sorry, login page. Now I have this. All I need to do is I need to call these appropriate files, appropriate classes which I just created, right? Okay. So it's a Boolean variable which will be returning Boolean. Okay. Check equal to. So I'll be getting from DB utils. Here, if you remember, I am using all the static methods. I didn't go for normal private public methods. So I have to create. I will be end up in creating a an object, but here I don't need to do that, right? So I can use my username and password. So I'll be getting the connection object from my SQL connectors. My SQL connection dot. Sorry, that is a connection utils dot get my connection. Cool. Okay. Right. So based on my check, I will get to know whether it is appropriate attempt to log into our site or not, right? So for this purpose, I'll be using a print writer just to. I'm not going to return to any of the HTML here. I'll be just validating it whether it is present or not. Okay, so I'll be getting the print writer. That means we'll be writing something to the response object. So basically, we'll be getting it from the response object. So dot get writer. So it throws declaration over exception. Okay, now what I need to verify. So my Boolean check. So I need to write whether the attempt is successful or not. So I'll be using println. Okay, println. Maybe I will try something like login success. Okay. Else. Okay. Now let's try to run it again. I don't have to remove it, but just for safety, I'm removing it and running it again. Okay. So the username is Harish. The password is Harish. So I'm able to log in. That's because I have the appropriate credentials here, right? So any questions on so far what we have discussed? So if I have to create one more servlet, which means if I have to create one more page, okay, okay, something here. So this is a mapping. So as the servlet increases, I mean, like as a pages increases, as a number of pages, a number of mappings increases, we need to keep adding our servlets here. Okay, our web.xml will we need to always modify this, add a new servlet, and we need to add a new servlet here. Okay, this is one of the, I would say this is how they designed it, but it's one of the disadvantages for us. Let's see how we'll handle this in Spring. And also, whenever we are creating the DB, we need to do like so much of boilerplate code here, like creating, where is my DB connection details? So creating the connection, class.forName, and how are we going to deal with this in the Spring, we'll see, right? And of course, this is not the best way to connect, but I just showed you how it can be done in a basic way. That's all. Any questions on this? Cool. Okay, guys, let's take 15 minutes break, and we'll be joining again in 15 minutes. Okay.
Harish, one question.
Yes, please.
If suppose I'm using any MySQL, suppose I'm not using MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL.
Yes.
So where I can get this package name like class.forName you are using?
So basically, it depends on what kind of database you are using for. So to connect with MySQL, we have this com. It's a driver name basically. What is the driver code you are using for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a specification. You will get that whenever you try to download that. They'll tell the class name. What is the class you have to use for?
Okay, okay. I mean, I can get that from the documentation itself.
Yes,
But
exactly.
suppose it needs very some kind of research, some kind of things like that. Means I need to do extra work to, suppose I'm new to some different database, like suppose PostgreSQL.
Okay, Postgres. Yes.
Yes. So
So
how can I get that name?
So basically, whenever you are trying to use a library file, which you are basically you need to add a driver that basically the jar file to connect to that. So if you go through the documentation of the jar file, so you'll get to know what kind of class you need to use, what kind of connection URL you need to pass.
Okay, okay.
I mean, like there is no
Thanks.
ready solution for that. You need to go through the documentation. Similarly, if you are using any of the pre-built solutions, you need to go through the documentation to find out what kinds of classes available, what it does. Okay, what kind of methods are there, what we will get out of that method, how to use that method,
Yeah, yeah. That's
if that is your question.
yeah. Thanks.
Cool. Any other questions before going on break?
No, Harish.
We'll take 15 and we'll be back by, okay, for my time it's 12:15. I don't know what's time in India. We'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. My first constraint is always time. What is the amount of time given for me to develop that any particular application? So based on that, my choices will change, right? Okay. Let's say if I've given very less amount of time, my prediction is that it may take like 2 weeks to develop a single functionality, right? But they asked me to do it in a 1 week. So automatically I'll think of, is there any ready-made solution available for me? So whatever you guys told, I'm rephrasing them, that's all. Is there any ready-made solution available for me? Right. So if so, how complex is it for me to understand and include it in my development? Complex, right? Once after it is done, so if I ran into any problem, is there any community? So somebody told that it should be backed by a good community. Even we have to think about that. So if I ran into any problem, what kind of support I will get, right? What kind of support I will get? Next. So everything is good, everything is fine, but is it paid or is it open source? Somebody told again it's open source here. Open source, right? Next. So is it better if I do my code? I mean, I'm speaking in the terms of performance. in the times of performance. Is it better if I code everything, or is it better if I use the existing framework, right? Again, performance, right? Next, my future thoughts. If I use this appropriate framework, or if I use any ready-made solution, is it feasible for me in the future to extend this this functionality? I may have to change something, right? Let's say today I would be using Oracle. Is it possible for me to change it to Postgres? So I need to consider that as well. So I need to take into account as well. So right, feasibility. So all these things leads to one basically main constraint. What is my main constraint? Time. Obviously, when there is no time, I'll think of ready-made solutions. So let's go to the PPT presentation here. It's not opening up. Okay. So what is the need for frameworks? First thing, I don't have to write boilerplate code. So in our previous example, I've been writing, let's say if I have to configure one more servlet here, if I have to configure one more servlet here, if I have to write one more, let's say after logging in, I need to display, let's say I am all employees, an employee can select and we can edit the details. For that, I need to write 2 more servlets, right? It's a boilerplate code. I don't have to do that. If I have a ready-made solution, I don't have to do that. So servlet, like I need to servlet one more mapping, some other servlet, and then procedure goes on. I need to create one more servlet similarly, and keeps on going as a number of requirements increases, as a number of pages increase in our website, right? That is a constraint for me. Now, so if it is available, if there is something ready-made available, right? So it will take less time for me to develop the application. Why is that? Because I don't have to write the boilerplate code. So I don't have to write the unnecessary code which is already there, which my framework will provide. Let's say, for example, the connection. We opened a connection, right? So if you are using any framework, let's say if I was using Spring framework, it provided me a simple JDBC template. All I have to do is use that object, simple JDBC template object. Of course, I need to configure. That is a different case though. But I am not writing the actual logic to connect, right? I'm just providing the username, password, connection URL, and everything, whatever is required. That's all. I'm just configuring it, right? So I don't have to write any code. That makes my development faster, right? Right. And we are basically, I am not an exceptional performer when it comes to the code. My code may have some problems. We may face some issues with the performance. Let's say if I'm doing a connect, so in our previous code, I'm not doing any connection pooling. I'm just directly going for the connection, get connection. So let's say if I'm opening some 100 connections, what will happen to my application? So it will lag. So I can trust with that in the frameworks. So they will take care of the proper connection handling and everything. So which leads in better performance of my application. Let it be throughput or maybe execution time. So everything is interrelated, right? So any questions on that? What is the need for frameworks? Any questions on that? Why we are going for frameworks? Okay. Next. So a pictorial representation on how we will plug our framework with our code. Let's see. Framework. It is a large bodies of code. Basically, it's all the implementation what you need for, right? When we come to Spring, we'll speak about that, like what kind of large bodies we are going to implement in our code, and what is our code which we are going to write, right? If you see the first application, we have predefined code. Let's consider this as a predefined code, okay? And then we are writing a new code, very minimal code. When we're plugging it together, that gives a solution for us, right? So we already spoke about the advantage of frameworks. So some of our folks told that development will be a lot easier. So if we go for the frameworks, yes, that is accepted, much quicker and more effective, because we are not writing a lot of code. There is already code available. All you need to do is use appropriate class, appropriate method to get the functionality done, right? Now, obviously, whenever there is a less coding, right, there will be a cost saving for the client, cost saving for the company, because you will end up like developing the application in less time than the expected time. So which means, so we are saving some money for the client, right? And obviously, the main reason for excuse me, why frameworks are so famous, because of the community available behind that. Let's say Spring Framework, it is backed by a huge community. If you have any questions, you just need to paste it in any forum. There are people around you to help with that. You can get the responses within no time, right? So that is one of the advantages of the frameworks, using frameworks. If you write your own solution, right, there is nobody to support you. All you have to do is like refer the docs available in Java. If there is any functionality available for you to leverage the feature, right? But if you use a framework, there is somebody always whoever is working on that, they'll help you. They are always there to help you, right? Let's see what are the frameworks available, and I just try to show you whatever I can, but these are not the only frameworks available in the market. However, there are lots of frameworks available. I just like try to show you very minimal here. So we have JSF, Java Server Faces or Facets, what we call structs. It's again, we don't have to speak about structs, but it's also a web application development framework which we'll use. Spring, that is what our main concept is. That is what we are going to discuss. Play Maven. Maven is, as I can tell, Maven is a build tool or centralized repository. That depends on the way you use it. If you are trying to, let's say, add your dependency, then you are trying to pull it from the Maven central repository. That time it will be called as a repository. If you are trying to build it or package your application, so let's say if you are mvn clean install, it will just do install and it will create a jar file for you. If you are using a package, mvn package, that means you are packaging your application. So if you are using for a run, mvn:run, that depends on the way you use. So Maven is a build tool and also a repository. Okay, I would tell, or dependency management. Now Hibernate, it's a framework specifically designed to solve some kind of solution, some kind of problem. What is a problem? So we can tell it as an ORM, object relational mapping. What is that? So far we did on our in our previous project, which we did in the servlets. So what we did, we wrote a code to connect to database, right? So underlying database, we know what is it? It's a SQL. Let's say if it is changing tomorrow, what will I do? I need to rewrite the query again if the syntax is not matching with the new database which I'm using, right? So at the point of time, what can be done? So with the help of this kind of frameworks which is available around us, like Hibernate, all you have to do is write this query in HQL basically, or basically using annotations, and whatever the code in the framework, which if you have interest, you can always unzip and see the code, the source code, but we don't have to do that, because all we need to do is use the existing functionality and create your solution on top of that. So Hibernate will take care of the things. Let's say if I'm today connecting to Oracle, it's fine. Tomorrow, if you connect to MySQL, it's fine, completely accepted, because you are not depending on the syntax of the SQL or SQL properly related to a database. Okay, so these are the some of the advantages of these frameworks, right? Now, I just try to show a very minimal here, but there are a lot. Okay, any questions on that part? Okay, I'm repeating this sentence again for the freshers who doesn't have any experience. If you guys think I am going too fast, please let me know. I know for the experienced guys who already have work experience, they might be using this every in their day-to-day coding activities, so they don't have to too much worry about these concepts, whatever I'm speaking right now. But it's for the freshers who doesn't have any experience. Okay, let's talk about Spring Framework. I can strongly tell that most of the current web applications which were developed on Java, okay, so it was running on the Spring Framework. I can tell you that, unless if somebody migrated to Angular or React or whatever. But earlier to all these frameworks, So Spring framework was a revolution. Why is that? Right, before Spring, what kind of frameworks do we have in for Java? I can think of structs, EJBs. Okay, there are some issues with the EJB. So during 1990s, I guess, so they came up with the solution of EJB in the time of late 1990s, I would say. Excuse me. So they came up with the solution, but there is a problem with that. Why? What is the problem? It's very complex. So enterprise Java being actually the initial motive of EJB is to reduce the complexity in J2W applications, but it didn't succeed. It didn't succeed the actual motto of the EJBs. Why is that? Why it didn't succeed? So while writing a EJB, while writing a component in EJB, we need to set up multiple XML files. So imagine if you are working on a huge application which has some thousands of classes. So at that point of time, this will be a little hectic. It'll be too much burden on the developer. Okay, to write multiple configuration files, and if there is any issue to debug, it's like you can't even find out what is happening there, right? That is one of the problem. So then then it comes with a heavy weight as a code increases. As the number of jar files you add to the file, it increases. The size of your the size of the application will be I cannot tell the numbers, but it will be too much. Everybody prefers lightweight. Who doesn't prefer lightweight, right? You need everything in light. So that is one of the reason why the EJBs are not so famous. Now let's come to Spring. Why it is so famous? Why is it? What is the reason behind the success of Spring? Before going there, we need to. Okay, since we are freshers, I cannot assume that everybody know the history of the Spring. I can tell you that the initial just to talk about the history of the Spring, the initial release was somewhere around like 2003. I can tell it was in the February. Like the initial release is just 2 MB. Can you imagine, guys? The lightest Spring framework is 2 MB. So which is a major factor at the point of time, right? The current version of Spring, it can be, I can tell you it was something around like 4.x. I don't remember the exact version. Sorry, 5.x or 4.x. I don't remember the exact version, but it was way back 2016. It was released on 4.3. Okay. Now, why is Spring framework used? Basically, Spring framework is used to develop J2D enterprise level applications, right? Why do I have to use it? Because it is rich in modules. What do I mean by rich in modules? Let's say if I want a ORM module, I can just include the ORM module in my project. I can work on that. If I want a web module, I can just only include web module and I can work on that. If I want a JPA module, so I can include the JPA. Basically JPA and ORM, it's kind of persistent objects, but for different kinds, it will provide different modules. Okay. And one more thing, the testability in Spring applications. So I'm assuming everybody is aware of the unit test cases, which will be written by the developers. So for the freshers, just to give an insight. So whenever you write your code, okay, let it be a web application, or let it be a front-end application, or let it be only microservice, or let it be any service, anything, any application what you write, it is always recommended to write test cases, just to basically this is called as developer testing. And if you go into any of the organization, there will be a limitation. At least you need to pass like 80%. There is a code coverage, something called code coverage. You need to write your test to cover 80% of your code, whatever you have written. Okay, so we will talk about that later when we come to the actual Spring, how it works. But it's one of the major factors in the Spring framework. So testable, basically containers. Okay, it is independently testable. It doesn't dependent on any server, because it provides a container and you can run your application within it. It's one of the reason for that. Now I told either you can import whatever the module you need, or you can import all the modules as a complete framework. You can do that, and it is used to develop all the layers of the application. It can be front, it can be backend layer or database DAO layer, or it can be web layer. Anything. It's up to you. Depends. Right. Now, okay. So we already spoke about this. Why is Spring popular? Because it uses Pojo and Poji models. What is Pojo? Okay, just to define you, it is a plain Java, a plain old Java object. Okay, what is Poji? Just to give the abbreviation, it is plain old Java interfaces. So let's talk about Pojos. But I'll show you when we go through the code what is Pojo. Just to give a brief introduction, what is Pojo for the guys who don't know what is Pojos. Okay, it is nothing but it is your bean class, or I can tell a simple class, okay, which doesn't have any dependency on, or which doesn't have any objects or dependency on any other classes. And all the there are some limitations on that. I mean, like, there are some rules which you need to follow. All your right, all your member variables should be private, and how to create getters and setters for that. Yeah, we will talk about that when we start implementing that. Right, just to give a brief introduction about that. What is Poji? It's similarly like interface. It doesn't depend on anything. It's just a simple interface, right? Like I told, it can be simply easily testable. It does not need a server. All we can do is just run the container, and it'll pick up from there, right? The main reason, which we haven't discussed so far, it is Spring is loosely coupled because it provides the concepts like dependency injection, Aop modules, and many more. So, okay, here, what is dependency injection? Basically, first we need to know about IOC, invention of control. It can be explained by using dependency injection. So what is the advantage of this, and how do we do the dependency injection in Spring? We'll see that while coding. Okay, any questions on so far, guys? Okay, I'll take that as no. A simple pictures to represent what is testability, why I'm telling is testability is so easy. So if you see this, I'm just injecting my Pojo classes and the metadata to Spring container. Basically, I can tell it's a IOC, and then I'm whatever the result is final ready to use application, I'm testing it at the end. Okay, I'm not using a Tomcat, run it on the Tomcat and test it, or I'm not depending on any of the server. I don't need that. Now, loosely coupled. Just to give an example, we can consider a car and a bike as a like both are vehicles, right? So they do share some common properties. What is that? Even cars and bike need some engine to start, engine to work on, right? And wheels. So these can be included in the vehicle interface. So, and it is, I call it Poji because it doesn't depend on anything else. It's just pure old Java interface which doesn't have any dependencies, nothing, literally nothing, right? Now let's see about, I've been talking about the different modules. Let's see the Spring architecture and what kind of modules it will provide. So what kind of modules it will provide for us to build our web applications. Okay, let's see. So if you see this is a Spring Framework architecture. I guess most of you guys might have, if you have Googled it anytime, you can find this. So these are independent modules are subdivided into like 7 modules, I would say. So basically, let's start with the core container. So what is a core container? All the Spring Framework modules are built on top of this core container, right? So we talked about beans, right? What is a bean? A bean is nothing but it can be anything, whatever you are going to create an object for. Simple bean, that's all. So where it will get created? It's in the container again, right? And then context is the application context. That's the IOC. We'll speak about that. And the expression language. What is the expression language? So Spring comes up with with its own language, okay, to ease the life of developers when they are working with the front end. Let's say in the earlier cases, if I have to write a JSP page, okay, I need to, sometimes I may end up including Java code as well by using the scriptlet tag. So which is not acceptable. Like let's say if my application is throwing, so let's say there is a developer who is barely new to the team, okay, and new to the web application development as well, and his code is throwing some kind of exceptions. Let's say it's throwing a null pointer exception, which most of the Java developers will see in their day-to-day activities. Okay, it will be displayed on the web page itself. It will be for the person, for the end user, it gives a very bad experience, right? So for that purpose, instead of writing the Java code, okay, instead of writing the Java code, we can use this expression language to solve that, like iterating over a list and displaying the, for example, let's say if I want to display a list of items on a web page, so I can use this expression language to display the list of items. We will see about this as well in the coding session when we start doing that. Okay, so I don't have to write the scriptlet tag and write the Java code, the hard-coded Java code, get the connection from DB again, and iterate over my list of objects and display them. No, I don't have to do that. So for me, expression language will do that for me, right? Now let's talk about data access integration, right? So in the servlets, the application which we developed just before the break, so the JDBC connectivity which we established, right? We have to write some code for that. We have to write some code for that, like the connection, getting the connection. Unfortunately, I didn't close the connection. I didn't close it, but you have to close it. So once you are done with the connection, right? That is that is one of the flow. If that is one of the disadvantage. If a developer forgets to close it, then there will be a performance issues, obviously, and at some point of time your DB may reject, saying that the connections maximum exceeded, right? So but here the Spring framework will take care of that. So that is one of the JDBC module, right? We already spoke about ORM module, that is object relational mapping. So what is the object relational mapping, right? First, in our servlet, so we have only one, we dealt with only one table, and it has only 2 parameters. That is okay, it's acceptable. But let's say if you imagine, if you are working on a huge application, and if you want to remember, I mean, like if you want to write all these independent parameter names, variable names, and map it to the Java classes, so it is a hectic process, right? So but ORM will provide a middle layer between the Java classes and the database. So what will we achieve that? So we can do the relational mapping between the objects to the tables present in the database. So how easy it is if you think of that. So I don't need to write a code, okay, manually to get the data from table and put it into my Java code, the the Pojo classes, right? So I can directly map it with the use of this framework, with the use of this module, right? Directly map it to my table names, whatever the table names and the table column present in that, right? Now let's speak about JMS. So it's kind of a messaging service, I would say, Java messaging services. So nowadays we are using this asynchronous way of communication, that whenever we come to deal with asynchronous way of communication. Okay, here I have to talk about asynchronous and synchronous. What is synchronous? Okay, if you think of a web application which is dealing with web services. Okay, it's a very deep concept, web services, because I need to explain about web services because we have some guys who never worked on that. Okay, in a layman terminology, what is synchronous? Let's say I will file a request and I will wait for the response, which means the initiation has been taken by me. So that means I am waiting for that. That is synchronous, right? What is asynchronous? So I'll put the message, and I don't care about the message. Okay, I'll put the message somewhere, and I don't worry about the consumer, about who is going to consume it. So that is asynchronous communication, because I'm not waiting for the other person to respond to me, right? But at the end, I will get the response, and I'll see what I have to do with the response. If there is a failure, I'll be rewriting to some other topic or queue. That we'll speak about it when we get there. But I'm just giving an example. What is synchronous and asynchronous? Okay. Any questions on that, guys? Okay, there are some 3 messages. Okay, no questions. Cool. So, okay. Now let's speak about web module. If I have to develop a web application, I just need to include this module, web module. Okay. So this web, servlet, portlet, structs, everything is grouped under web module, subgrouped under web module, because we are dealing with the web. All these submodules deal with the web contents, right? So if I ever want to use any web, if I want to create a web application, right, let it be JSP or whatever the view technology. I don't mind about the view technology, right? So it can be JSP or JSF, anything of your choice, or time leaf templates, or FTL. It says a legacy applications, FTL. That is free market templates, FTL. If you I don't know whether anybody worked with that. There was something called FTL. So it can be anything. So I can use this web module just to do that, to do the interaction. And here, whenever we are including this web module, there is something called MVC. When we get there, we'll speak about that. But for now, it is a model view controller approach. It is one of the design pattern, I would say, to work with. We will see how it works. Okay, in real time, when we start working on the project. Okay. No, I forgot. I didn't speak about the transactions. I didn't speak about AOP as instrument. Sorry, aspects. Instrumentation. Okay, what is a transaction? Right. So when in our Servlet code which we wrote, I didn't do any of the transaction open or commit or rollback, because it is a simple read operation. Simple read operation. Let's imagine I am trying to write hundreds of records at a time, right? So what will happen if there is a problem in my one of the record, and I'm not able to write the record to the database? I'm not able to write the record to the database. So what will happen at that time? So as per the programming principles, you need to roll back the entire transaction. Okay, we should not commit anything. We should not commit anything to the database. Okay, even though let's say if you are trying to write 150 records and you are able to successfully write 149 records, right? But you are not able to write the 150th. At this point of time also, you need to roll back the entire transaction because it failed. So for that purpose, we'll be using the transactions. That will be easy for us if you use this transaction module, okay, in Spring. If we have to do that manually, if you ever want to do that manually using the Servlet, the Servlet code, what we wrote, again, you may end up writing boilerplate code, like too much of code, which is not necessary, right? What is AOP? It is an aspect oriented programming. I would say it's a cross-cutting function. So whenever you need to deal with some of the things which you want to insert in between the code, you can use this AOP. It's a very vast concept. We will discuss this in detail when we try to implement it, because if I speak about this right now, so some of the freshers may not even understand what I'm speaking. It will be a gibberish for them. Okay. Now let's come to the test module. We already spoke about that, right? So testing of the applications which we developed in the Spring framework, it is much easier. All we have to do is inject the pojos, inject the beans, and the container will take care of everything, and it will provide us the ready to test solution. We will see that as well, right? Any questions on that? I've been speaking continuously for almost like 20 minutes. Sorry for that. Any questions on that? Guys, you need to understand this because we will be using this a lot from now on. Not this exactly the structure, not everything, whatever we need. Like I told, it is a modularized framework. Either you can use everything or you can use bits and pieces. That means you can use independent modules. Okay, but whatever you use, core is mandatory. This core container is mandatory, core module is mandatory, because all the modules are built on top of this core container, core module. So let's say if I want to use a simple JDBC template or JDBC module, the data access integration module. Okay, if I want to use that, I need to include my core container, core module, and then only I can include JDBC. Otherwise it won't work, because everything is dependent on core. Everything is built on top of core, right? Here, interesting fact which we need to know about Spring Framework. So we have been talking about framework, right? What is the implementation? What is the ideology behind this framework? So did they create a completely new solution, or how a Spring Framework works? Has anybody thought of this? Like everybody will speak about framework, but what exactly is behind the framework? What is a framework? It is nothing but bunch of classes. If we speak in the Java terminology, so there are frameworks for other technologies as well, right? But if you speak in the Java terminology, it is nothing but a group of classes, I would say. It's just a classes, that's all, right? So we will be using the functionality present in that class by creating an object, or if it is a static methods, by using the same class name, or maybe by by using the auto configuration. If we go for the Spring, that depends again. All you need to do is use the classes. Framework is nothing but a bunch of classes. That's all, right? It's time to know about the actual implementation of Spring Framework, right? Did they create a new solution altogether? No, it is based on top of servlets, right? Why will I tell that? I mean, like, why it has to be on the servlets? Obviously, if you remember my first statement about web applications, we need to have a server to run, right? Server to run the application. So if we take Tomcat server right now, it is a servlet container, right? It has a capacity to run the servlets in it. There are different kinds of servers which you can speak about. JBoss, this application server, I would tell, and WebSphere, and so many, Jetty. But let's speak about Tomcat for now. It's a servlet container called as Katiana is present in that. So that's a servlet container. Okay, right. So for every web application, it depends on servlets again. So the Spring Framework is entirely based on servlets. Whatever you can do with the servlets, you can do with the Spring, right? I will show you what I mean by that statement, that it is completely dependent on the it is written on top of the servlets, right? So we have some experience, guys, right? So I am assuming that at least once in your career, right, you might have come across this dispatcher servlet, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I meant. Framework also, we have servlet. That means our Spring Framework is entirely based on the servlets. I will talk about dispatcher servlet in some time. Okay, any questions on that, guys? Okay. Yes,
Hi Harish, what is this instrumentation module?
we will speak about
What
that.
does it
See,
do?
we will speak about that when we try to implement. Okay, we'll speak about that. I told
Okay,
you
okay,
that. So if I
okay, sure.
speak right now, it may be a gibberish for so many guys.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So if we don't have any questions, let's try to summarize the things what we spoke so far. Okay. I know I'm repeating the same things again and again, but it is for some of the guys who doesn't have any experience on Spring, who don't know what is Spring at all. So far, I have told what is the advantage of any framework, why we have to go for frameworks. Okay, what will we achieve if we use a ready-made solution in our development phase? Okay, and what are the frameworks available? So I need a volunteer again. So don't take me wrong. Okay, I just wanted to be a interactive session, so that's why I'm picking it again. Okay, anybody please. So it doesn't have to be a single person. So everybody can pitch in and just tell me one liner. Okay, whatever we have covered so far. So it will be easy for me also, that whether you guys are listening or whether you guys understood or not. Okay. Yes, guys, please. So anybody? Guys, don't make me to pick participant names, please. Don't do that. We're not in college anymore. See, it's just for my understanding. So see, I just wanted to know whether you are able to understand what I am trying to tell you guys or not. Please.
Is it about Spring Framework?
No, whatever the topics which we covered so far about the frameworks, not only Spring Framework. So what it's just a recap what we spoke, that's all. Okay, I will
Hello.
give you the initiation.
Hi, Harish.
Yes, please. If you guys want a initial comment, I will do that. Okay. We discussed about the need for a framework. Okay, like that.
Framework is a collection of classes.
Okay. Framework is, I would say, a group of classes which are bundled in basically jar files in Java. If you speak about Java, since we are speaking about only about Java, it will be bundled in jar files, right? I would say like in the bracket jar. I'm not speaking about any front-end application, guys, front-end frameworks. Okay, I know there are front-end frameworks, but it's purely related to Java, right? Next.
Reduces boilerplate codes.
Okay, we spoke about that. So
Yeah.
no need to, I can frame like no need to write boilerplate code. No need to write boilerplate code. Okay.
As we discussed, there will be some predefined classes what we can use.
Okay. So framework comes with predefined classes and methods, right? I can tell that.
Yes, yes.
Comes with predefined classes and methods, right? Next.
Using framework,
Any comments about Spring?
using framework, it actually provides like it reduces the burden of the programmer, and it provides like scalable and maintenance is easy and performance is good, and we no need to like write lots of code as we already written on here.
Okay. we discussed about. Okay, I can frame a sentence saying that we discussed about the advantages of framework. Okay, discussed about advantages of any framework, of a framework. Okay,
We got a glimpse of the frameworks we use and the frameworks before Spring, which we used previously, and also in Spring we have loose coupling. That is what we discussed.
okay, we discussed about loose coupling. Pardon my spellings, guys. Loose, Loupling, loose coupling. Then discussed about the I can tell the evaluation of frameworks. I can discussed about evolution of works. Right. I need some comments about Spring, please, because I spent almost 20 minutes explaining Spring, so I need some comments about Spring. I would appreciate that.
Spring is a modular framework.
Exactly. That's a good point. Spring is a framework. Right.
Spring is basically lightweight, scalable, and easy maintenance, and it provides loose coupling and dependency injection to remove the burden of the programmer, because in dependency injection we no need to create the classes and create the object, manage the object, and restore the object. All the things are taken care by IOC container, whatever the container we have in Spring.
Dependency injection. So transactions, when we are speaking about transactions, right? Transactions, we don't have to do that. Spring will do that for us. Next. Oh, sorry. Yes, please. Next.
Spring doesn't need a server, it has its own container.
That's when it comes to testing. Okay, we didn't go there yet. So Spring Boot comes with the embedded container. Of course, you can include in the Spring also, but we need that's for testing because we don't need a container. Yes, that's a good point. Testing is easier with next.
Spring architecture.
Yeah, discussed
With 7 modules is there.
Spring architecture.
Using Spring, you can easily connect it with the database. No need to write all those things, whatever the we have to write in Servlet.
So we can tell advantages of Spring.
Yeah, we can.
Something like advantages of Spring. Cool. Yes. And most very important thing, if you have to use, we discussed about this, guys. If you have to use any Spring module, it is built on top of code. So we need code. Remember that point, guys. We need core module for everything. For all the other modules to work. Right.
Loosely coupled.
Yeah, we already spoke about the loosely coupling here. That's a good point though. Okay, so we
it is a non-invasive, means we don't need to depend on the framework itself.
Perfect.
Suppose if we want to, yeah.
Perfect, that's a good point. It is non-invasive. Pardon my spellings again. Right. So we have too many points. That's good. That's good. Now it's our time to start hands-on session in the Spring. Okay. Again, now I'll start with a simple web application. Okay. This time, instead of doing just one functionality, we will try to do like at least like read, write, insert, the CURD operations. Okay, at least we'll try to do that, and I will explain what did we gain from the Spring by using Spring, not using servlets. Right, again I'm going to my Eclipse. Let me save this. I know I should have asked this question long time ago. Are you guys just following whatever I'm typing in my Eclipse, or are you guys trying to type or trying to do the hands-on?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because I'm trying to understand whether you guys are connected with your PC from your home, since everybody is working from home, right? I should have asked this in the beginning. My bad, guys. I forgot that. Are you so are you guys working from home, or are you guys working from a particular location, and you have a projector, something projecting this the work which I'm doing right now? How is it working for you guys?
Work from home, I think, for everybody.
So you guys have two screens? No, because I'm trying to understand how you guys are able to, code while you guys are listening.
Yeah, as you shared with the slide, I mean, yesterday on the mail, I think everybody has set up their things like STS or Eclipse or whatever you said.
Okay, cool, no problem. So if you guys are comfortable, I'm fine with that. Clearing all, removing it. Okay, this time I will give you the problem statement which we are trying to solve. In the sense, problem statement in the sense, the application details. You can think of like a requirement. Okay, we can think of like a requirement. Let me show the requirement. Sorry guys, it's pretty unorganized. It's pretty unorganized. I just copy pasted it from my mail. Okay, so the problem statement, if you go through the problem statement, I will go through the problem statement for you guys. Okay, a truck company needs a software solution to manage its truck fleet. The company is in the process of upgrading its truck fleet by adding new trucks and selling some of their old ones. So we don't care about that, what they're going to do, but all we need is what is that requirement. So they are proposing a solution for that. Proposal solution comes up with a GUI based solution designed in Java. Below are the key requirements. So whatever you want to do, you do it in Java with a graphical user interface. Either you can go for, so for this purpose, for this training, I'm taking it as a web application again. So don't think I'm spending too much time on the web applications. It is for the freshers again. I'm repeating again and again. Sorry for that, guys. So whoever has joined like with some experience, I know you have already worked with it, but please bear with me. Okay, now there are some requirements for that. The solution should be able to support multiple logins, which means from this requirement we understood that we need to support multiple users, or we can think of like multiple times a user can log in. So that's assumption. So I'm assuming that both. So we need to support multiple logins, and at the same time user should be able to log in multiple times. Not at the same time, but once you log out, you should be in a position to log in again, right? Now, what is my second requirement? Once logged in, a user should be able to add a truck by entering the following attributes, like VIN number, truck, license plate, model year. I mean, like, I'll do that independently for you. Let me format that. Oops, my bad. So we need a model of the truck, year, previous owner if it is seconds, total kilometers on it, and there is a requirement for the Boolean field as well. So whether all maintenance is done or not, right? So this is one of the requirement. Should be able to enter the details into our database, like which gives we should be able to store the details, right? Now once entered, the data should be stored in the database and needs to be, okay, there is a spacing issue. retrievable using search. So they're asking us to create a search functionality as well. Okay. Sorry guys, somebody is joining right now. Are you guys having some network issues? Because I'm seeing constantly people are going out and coming back. I don't know what is happening, guys. So if it is
Yeah,
problem
actually
from
some
our side,
network
please let me know. Okay, if it's a connection problem with my my system, I'll see what I can do. Please let me know. Okay, now what is my functionality again? So from this we understood that we need a search functionality. Okay, trucks added by a particular user should not be deleted or edited by a different user. So we can use any technology, we can use anything. Let's forget about that for now. So these are the requirements. So from this, okay, I can think of this as a, so let's think in the CURD operations. Okay, for the guys who don't know what is CURD operations, so it's create, update, read, and delete. Okay, CRUD. Clear, guys? Any questions on that? For the freshers who have never heard of that, the term, this terminology. So in the other words, if we speak with the in the terms of database, okay, it's like creation. What is creation? Basically, we are inserting into data, right? Or creating a table, but in our case, it will be insertion, right? What is the cell? This one, update statement. So it's again, it's update, right? What is read? Read is select. Okay. What is delete? Again, it's a delete. There is a there are delete statement, insert statements, update statements, right? You can tell it as a DML. That's data manipulation language, but that's out of the scope for now. I'm assuming that everybody worked with databases, at least learned what is database, right? So I can take this as a select, because we have to do for the very first functionality, we need to select the users present in the database, right? And now this is, I can think it of as a insert. Okay. And then again, this is a restriction. Again, it can be based on, so okay, once entered, the data should be shown in the database and needs to be retrievable using search. So search is again a select. Okay, trucks added by a particular user should not be deleted or edited by a different user. So edit functionality is like update existing. So as I promised, we will be dealing with all of these. Sorry for that. Okay, so let's name it truck fleet management. Okay, so again, I'm doing this as a simple web application, dynamic web application. I'm not using any Maven. Okay, again, I'll be copy pasting the jar files. If you want to download the jar files, you need to go to this website, the Java 2 case, the website which I showed earlier. Please download the Spring jar files. I'll give you like probably 10 minutes to do that. I guess it will be enough for you guys, because I have it with me ready-made available. I don't know how can I share it with you guys, because there is no common drive given by the company to me. So otherwise I could have done that.
Yeah, I think you can share with the links on the chat box.
Oh, I don't have the link. That's what.
Okay, no problem.
Let me download them. I'll show you guys. Okay. So what are the jar files I needed? Okay. So I'm using very legacy application kind of jar files. I would say like Spring 3.x, Spring 3. I'm using Spring 3.1.2. Is there any way for me to share the jar files directly to you guys? Is there any way for me? Is there any common repository so you can download this? Let me paste this in the chat. Where is my chart? Is it okay if I share to save the time? Oh, crap. To everyone. Just to save time, is it okay if I share it via Google Drive or any other, if you think of any other drive, maybe Dropbox, anything? Do you guys have access by any chance?
We have like ambient repository where you can download all the jars.
No, that is the thing. See, the freshers doesn't know what is MVN. That's why I'm. But if you want to download, you can download. Yes, MVN repository. Please share the link. I will tell you what kind of jars you need. What are the jars I'm using here? Okay, let me think of a way to share it with you guys. Okay, I'm using these. Sorry guys, I don't know how to share this, so that's why I was communicating with my peer. I'm sorry for that. Okay, how can I share these things? I have asked for the access, but the community didn't provide me a shared folder. Okay, anyway, let's take a okay, it's 1:28. I have till 2:30, 1 more hour class. Okay, let's take a break right now. I'll figure out a way. Okay, I'll talk to the team and we'll see what I can do. Yeah. 15 minutes. I'm sorry guys, I didn't hear you. So you're speaking to me? Sorry. Okay, I will let you go for now, like 15 minutes, and then we'll connect exactly in the after 15 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Resume recording. Okay. So for today's session, I have barely 20 minutes left, 30 minutes left. So I guess I cannot create the application within the given time. So it will be better if we do it tomorrow. So we have an entire session to finish it up, okay, and discuss on that. Anyway, I guess today I feel like I'm giving too much of information for the guys who don't know much about the web application development, okay, and also the Spring framework. But I have something to discuss. Okay, let me go on to my browser. Okay, new image, Spring training. Images. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, so far we have discussed about how to create a web application, okay, using servlets, but I didn't show you with Spring. I'm sorry for that because of the time constraint. And anyway, I feel like I'm giving too much of information for the guys who doesn't have any experience. Again, I'm repeating the same sentence. Sorry for that. Right. But nobody asked me a question, right? Yes, Adi, sorry. Nobody asked me a question about like how that, what is the data structure? I mean, like what is the directory structure of a application, of a web application, right? Don't think the structure, whatever we are doing here, is the actual structure. No, it is not the actual structure. So nobody asked the question. So it is a so I am assuming that people with experience who has worked, they have this idea, but I expected this question from freshers. So do you guys are aware of the structure, the web project structure, or you never thought of that? Okay, don't worry. I will only take the initiation and I'll start explaining about this, how it is converted into this one. Okay, going back to my Eclipse again. Okay, if you look at this structure, this is a development structure which we are using. That's all. It's not the actual web application structure which will be present in the container. Basically, the servlet container, I would say Tomcat, right? So it has a specific structure for that. What is a specific structure? Why it has to be in that structure, right? What is the structure first of all? What kind of folders we will be having? What kind of directories and what are the subdirectories present in that? Okay, before going there, we have to speak about jar files and war files, right? To abbreviate them, what is jar file? It is Java archive file. We can just simply tell Java archive file. Like I already told, the frameworks, right? If you open our notepad from our discussion, somebody told it's a group of classes, but it comes as a jar file, right? We will be using just an example to show you here. Jar file. This is a jar file which we downloaded the MySQL connector, right? That is a jar file. That is Java archive file, right? But is it possible for me to deploy a jar file in Tomcat container? Whatever the code which I wrote so far using servlets, is it possible for me to create a jar? Is it possible for me to deploy it? No, it is not. There is a specific format for that. Okay, you have to follow the standards. So it is a when we are dealing with a web application, don't compare this with the boot. Boot is different. We will completely come to the boot. I know somebody who has experience with boot, they think, why can't I do this jar? You can do that, but I'm speaking about the servlets. Okay, I'm speaking about the servlets, right? So is it possible for me to deploy it as a jar file in the container, in the Tomcat container? No, it is not possible. For that, we have a specific format that is called as web archive files. Okay, that is called as war files. So what will my war file have? Okay, whatever the information we have it here, whatever the information in this project, I have my source code. Okay, if I have my libraries, if I'm using my Maven, I'll have Maven libraries. Basically, when there is a build, it will compile everything and create a war file for me. And I have my deployment descriptor, and I will be having the JSP pages or HTML, basically views. We can call it as views. It can be any technology. It can be free marker, like I explained already. It can be free marker. It can be JSL. It can be JSP. It can be JSF. It can be time leaf, anything. So we will have that under the web content folder. And what else we have? If we have any resources, let's say if I'm dealing with some images, let's say I have a folder called images, we will have all those things. So basically, whatever the contents, need to make a complete application, in the sense to build a complete project, which is a web project. Okay, that kind of information will be available in the war file, right? So, okay, how can I build a war file? There is a command to build a war file, but the easiest way, I'll show you, right? Run as, sorry, export. Where is export? Export war file. So you can give, my project name is web application, sorry, first servlet application. I want to browse a destination. Let's say for this purpose, I'll be browsing it in the desktop. Okay, I'll just leave it here. Okay, and I am running it on a runtime container. That's Tomcat. And I'll finish it up. That's all. So one more question here, guys, before going to explain about the Tomcat, the structure in the Tomcat, how it will be visible in the Tomcat. Okay, so far I have showed you, okay, how to run an application from the Eclipse, right? Nobody asked me like, how can I run the same application in the Tomcat directly? So this I expected this kind of question, but nobody asked me that question, right? I'll show you that, no problem. So I created a web archive file, right, just now. So I can use that web archive file and I can deploy it in the Tomcat container. So if I deploy it in the Tomcat container, okay, let's go to, let me find my Tomcat container. Okay, where is my, okay, here. Let's say I have Tomcat container here. So all I have to do is I need to paste this in the web apps. So you can paste it here directly. That's all you have to do. And then once you have done that, you need to find the startup.bat file. Okay, startup.bat. If you are running on Linux, that's different. But I'm using Windows, so I'm using the bat files. Otherwise, it will be .sh file. Okay, all you need to do is startup.bat. That's all. It will pick it up, and we will be having all the information. Right now, just to show the structure, see that it's a different structure. To give an example, it's a different structure what we have here, right? It's under the web apps folder. You can think whatever you want, like whatever the files we have, what it can be XML, it can be JSP, it can be anything, images, everything comes in this. This is a folder. Okay, going back to my this one. So if you think about a broader picture, so this is the folder structure which I will be having in my Catliana, basically the container, servlet container. So we have under the web application, whatever the name will be, let's say in our case, it will be first servlet. Okay, first servlet. So that is my root directory. Under that I have webinf, I have metainf. I showed you that already. See metainf, webinf. Right. So on all the static files, what is meant by static files? The index.jsp, the web.x, the index.jsp, and whatever the files which is outside of that web content. Okay, here, these are the static files. Okay, I'll have all those things. Now, in the webinf folder, I will be having the library files which I added. So in our case, I added only one mysql.jar file. So I'll be having it in my library folder. Okay. And now there is a deployment descriptor in the webinf. If you look at the project structure in our Eclipse, so it's already in the web content webinf folder. See this? Whatever is there in it, whereas it is copy pasting them. Actually, we don't do that. Catliner will take care of that. Okay, the war file. When we deploy the war file, we'll take care of that. Now, coming back to my browser. So I have classes. What is classes? What is a class file? So I'm assuming everybody know about a class file. So when you compile, okay, JVM will create a .class file for us. So basically, the .java It's a source code, but when we try to execute it, so our compiled code, basically .class file will run. Okay, so it's actually a byte code, right? .class file. So we will be having in the web-inf folder, and meta-inf will have the meta manifest information, that are metadata. I can tell you that metadata is like information about what you are going to do. So this is a web structure, basically web application structure in any container. Okay, any questions on that, guys? Okay, so if you guys don't have questions, let me cool. Now let's go back to the interactive mode. Not only this, do you have any questions on any topics we discussed so far in today's session? Because we started with simple web application, then we went to Spring Framework, and in between we discussed about MySQL, like the workbench and how to install, what is a connection, how to establish a connection, and then we discussed about the advantage of frameworks, why do we have to go to for frameworks and everything. So if you have any questions, okay, please feel free to ask me, because in every session I'll give the last 10 to 15 minutes for our question and answer.
Hi Harish, I have a question. Like in the MySQL workbench, suppose I'm creating different schema. So in that, while connecting to the Java programs, do we need to change the username and password, or what? That it will be same for every schema.
Let me open this. Yeah. Okay, it'll be easy for you to understand, for me to explain as well.
Yes.
My DB connections right here. Okay, to answer that question, okay, the question is actually, do I need to use, okay, keep that aside, do I need to use a different username and password to connecting to different schemas? Let's say in our case, I'm connecting to first servlet. If I have to connect to some other DB schema, let's say if there is a library management application and my DB schema name is library, so do I need to use the same, or will it differ? Okay, in my case, okay, in the workbench, the username and password is for the database, not for the schema. Okay. In some cases, if you think about a enterprise applications, okay, if you think about enterprise applications, so they will be having, I don't think, so if we speak about monoliths, they will be having only one username and password to connect. Okay, but at some times they will be dividing the database into multiple databases. At that point of time, you will be using different username and password. So to answer to your question, since I'm using a local machine, I didn't divide any of the databases, so it's a single instance for me. So I'll be using the same username and password for any database schema which I create in my database. Did I answer your question, or do you have any other doubts on that? If I'm going too fast, please let me know, guys. I'll reduce my pace.
Harish, I have one question on MySQL Workbench.
Okay.
While installing, I might have resetted the password, which is not root right now.
Okay.
So I forgot that password. How can I reset the password?
Okay, so that's a good question. That's an interesting question. I never did that. So you forgot the complete password. You don't have any admin access at all. That's your question, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. I seriously never did that. Okay. I'll tell you guys tomorrow session. I'll find it out. I'll figure it out and I'll tell you guys. Sorry for that.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Thank you.
There is a options file which I correctly remember. You can see. Okay. Here comes the thing again. First question. So what do you guys think of database? What is database? I should have explained this. I thought like everybody told they have 2 years of experience. I thought they know all these concepts, so I didn't go in detail. Okay. First question. How many of you guys know file systems? At least heard about the term file systems by any chance? No? No? Yes, no? Okay. I'll tell you, if you are using a Windows, okay, that is a file system. If you are using Linux, that is a file system. My file in Linux, my file starts from root. But here you have C drive, D drive, whatever drive, that is a file system, right? So without knowing, we are using file systems, right? So what is a concept of database, right? So how we used to survive before inventing this database, right? Database technology. So we used to work with file systems. Right? There is a comment. Sorry, I think I have internet issue. Okay, please let me know if you are back, if you can hear me.
We are able to hear Harish.
No, there is a guy, I forgot the name, Shahan Ahmad, I guess. And I can't hear. Okay, he can hear me now. That's good. That's good. That's good. I was about to type a message. Sorry, guys. Okay. Now, where was I? So I was speaking about the file systems. So if you are using Windows or a Linux or any kind of operating system, Solaris, Unix, anything, name it, you name it. So by default, okay, he has a network issue again. By default, that means without knowing that we are using the file system. That is a file system because everything is in files. Let's say I will open this. So all these are files here. Doesn't matter what kind of file it is, right? Folder and a file. Data.sql, that is a file, right? Spring Boot or PPT, that is also a file. So by default, we are using file systems, right? Now, the question is, before coming to database, so we used to survive with the file systems. So there are some problems with that. It takes more time. So people invented a better way of reading and writing the data, okay, into a system. That is, they came up with this database solution, okay. But behind the screens, how it will store the data? Have you ever questioned yourself how a database stores the data? I know it is a structured, organized, very well organized. We have tables, we have columns, okay, and I'm organizing multiple schemas. Everything is fine, but how will it work behind the screens? Okay, I will give you a hint, guys. Okay, try to go to the directory where you install your MySQL. There will be, you will be specified somewhere like C colon program files colon and whatever. So please try to search in the files. Okay, by any chance, if you find this whatever the schemas you created or whatever the tables you created, search in that. That will be a task for you guys. Okay, I'm telling you, it is based on file systems, but there is a better way. That's all. Okay, it is database concepts completely based on file systems, but they are doing it in a better way so that we don't have to suffer writing so much of code to interact with the file system. Instead, we can interact with the database. And actually, what makes a database a RDBMS? We have to speak about that. Okay, I unfortunately, it's my assumption that everybody worked, but I came to know that we have people who didn't work on them on any of the databases. Tomorrow we can discuss further on these concepts. Okay, and similarly, all the passwords will be stored in a file. Okay, if you forget a password, you can always access that file. Basically, in the server, there is a file by name options. Okay, if you open the installation directory, you'll find it there. But anyway, I'll show you guys tomorrow that how to recover the password. Right now, the question is why we call a database. Let's say, for example, why we call Oracle RDBMS. What is RDBMS? That's a question for you guys. Anybody? So, okay, let me rephrase the question again. Okay, what makes a database RDBMS? Anybody, please. If you guys know, please share the answer with us.
In RDBMS, the tables are having some relation with the other tables.
Exactly. So that is one of the main principle. Basically, in RDBMS. So let me define that first. Relational database management systems, right? So we expect some relations between tables, right? But the main factor why we call a DBMS, what makes any database a RDBMS is if it follows the rules specified by Card F. There is a scientist from IBM. Okay, he did that. He initiated this. So there are some rules which was proposed by him. If a database at least satisfies the 11 rules of Chart F, okay, that makes RDBMS. Otherwise, we will not be considered as a RDBMS. If you want me to discuss all the rules, I'm happy to do that, but it's a very lengthy process. But I'm just giving you an information. So since you are working with multiple technologies, you need to know the background about the technology. You need to know about everything. Like we know about, now we know about Spring, right? What is a backend technology they use to develop Spring? I told you it's servlets. It is completely based on servlets. I already gave you an example like a dispatcher servlet, right? Why do we name servlet? Because it's based on servlets. Similarly, DBMS, it's also built based on top of file systems, right? That is up to you to explore. And I gave the information on why we call a DBMS as DBMS or RDBMS, right? We have other databases also which are not relational databases. We call them NoSQL. That is different concept though. We'll speak about that as well, but it's not in detail. Just a brief introduction for you guys to understand what is the difference between NoSQL and SQL, right? Again, SQL. What is SQL? Just define SQL, please. Anybody?
Defining a SQL is something programming language which you use to interact with the database to retrieve, to fetch, delete or something.
Correct. Okay, so database doesn't know human language, right? If I ask, I need the details from it from the login table, so will it provide me? No. For that we need a domain specific language which is related to that SQL, sorry, which is related to the database, that is called SQL. So you may think SQL is same for all the databases. No, it is not. If you think, you completely got it wrong. That's why I'm telling it is a DSL, what do I mean by DSL? It is a domain specific language, which means it is specified to particular domain. So here, what is meant by domain? I'm speaking about databases. So let's speak about MySQL. Okay, the SQL which we are using here is specific to this. Okay, but if you use Oracle as your database, you may have, oh sorry, let me take this out. Okay, if you use your database as Oracle, let's consider, even though it is called as SQL to interact with the database, that is structured query language, okay, but the syntax which you use is different than what you use in the MySQL. Let's say if I want to get the top 10, okay, top 10 records, in here you can get like top 10. You can use the top keyword. There you have to go with the row num less than or equal to 10. So like that, there is a difference between the way you retrieve, the way you use the domain specific language, that is SQL. Similarly for the Postgres, you have your SQL, even though it is called a SQL, but it is specific to Postgres. Similarly for the SQL Server, basically people who are working on .NET will use SQL Server. So it is not limited to only .NET, but you can use still in the Java. But from my experience, I'm telling you, basically whoever works with the .NET, they prefer to use SQL Server. Now, that also has, they will call it as a SQL, but still it is specific to that domain, specific to that database. Any questions on that, guys? Understood? I mean, did you guys get it what I'm trying to explain?
Yes, Harish.
Cool. So there will be a little bit.
Harish,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah. What is the difference between NoSQL and SQL? SQL is understood. What is NoSQL? If you explain, I think I had the internet issue, so I couldn't listen.
Okay, I didn't explain anything about the NoSQL. I was speaking about the SQL. I told like there are databases, okay, which don't follow any of the Cardiff rules, the database scientist. So those things we will call, we don't call it as relational database management systems. We can call whatever we want. So they came up with the name NoSQL, which means whenever you are interacting with the database, you don't use a structured query language, that is SQL. Instead, you use their domain specific language. You use their DSL. Okay. I've been speaking about DSL. What is DSL? It is a domain specific language. What does that mean? It has a grammar. Okay. Let's take a very simple example. Now we are communicating in a language. What is the language we are communicating? What makes it a language? Let's say I'm communicating in English to you guys, right? I'm speaking with you guys in English. Okay. That is a DSL. Right, it is domain specific language, right? Let's say since you know English, you are able to communicate with me. If I speak with my dad doesn't know English, so he don't understand. So which means I can speak with you guys, whoever knows this language only. So similarly, if you come to any of this programming world, so domain specific language is related to particular domain only. Okay, so what will it have? It will have a grammar. Let's say again back to English. So I cannot frame a sentence by jumbling the words, right? Let's say my name is Harish. I cannot jumble them like am I something, whatever I want. I cannot do that, right? There is a specific syntax for that. Like you need to follow the grammar. Similarly, every DSL will come up with a grammar. Okay, you need to follow that to make a DSL. That's how they define the DSL. Based on the definitions of the DSL, they will implement, okay, they will implement the internal logic to respond to your DSL. Let's say in our case, SQL, we have been speaking about SQL. So there is a particular syntax to select, to retrieve the data. You need to use a select. So I need to write a keyword select. So there will be always keywords. Okay, there will always be keywords in any domain specific language. So in our case, select is a keyword. Similarly, insert is a keyword. Delete is a keyword. So that's how they define the structure of the language, with the keywords and operations, with the syntactics, semantics. Okay, I don't want to go in detail. If you want, I can go in detail. We have to speak about semantics, syntaxes and everything, and we have to go into that lexical analyzer, parser, everything. If you want, I can speak about that, but that is not required for our session. I'm just giving an example to understand the internal implementations. Whenever you work with any language, any domain, any technology, you need to understand how it has been implemented behind the screens. Now everything is well and good. I am using whatever I need. Okay, but we need to explore. As a programmer, you need to explore what is the underlying implementation. How did they achieve this solution? Okay, that's why I'm trying to give an example. So sorry if I'm giving too much of information. Yes, any questions on that? but I will try to, okay, I will try to give a session on differences between SQL, I mean the SQL databases, or I can tell RDBMSs, okay, and NoSQL databases. If I want an example, I can go for one example. I will take MySQL to compare with Mongo. Okay, if that helps for your understanding, I'll try to create a session on that for your better understanding, because in your projects you may have to deal with multiple kinds of databases, so you should have a good understanding. Any questions on this, guys? Let it be anything we discussed so far, including the database concept, or the concept about Spring or Spring Boot, anything. Of course, we didn't discuss about Spring Boot, but if you have, I'll try to answer. Sorry, I lost you there. Can you repeat the question, please?
And
No, still your voice is breaking. It will be better if you can type the message. Sorry, you were asking some question, so there was some internet lag. Can you please ask me that same question again? Am I audible to you guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Harish.
Yeah, Harish.
Sure, thank you. Because the other person, I can't see when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see your name, so that's why I'm not able to address with the name. I'm sorry for that. So whoever was asking the question, please ask me question. I will help you if I know the information. Okay, is DSL is specific to DB or standard to all DBs? Okay, that's a good question. So domain specific language is not specific to DB. Let's say in one of my I would like to share my experience here. In one of my project, I have to deal with graph database. Okay, that is not scope of this, but it's a graph database. So to represent the network architecture, to represent the link between network, let's say any network, let's say a mobile network. So there are multiple towers, right? Multiple towers may be connected to multiple devices. So like this I need to represent. So for that purpose I cannot use any of the database, so I need to come up with my DSL to deal with the kind of thing. So DSL is not specific to any database. Okay, DSL is something which will be invented and which will be used for only that database, or it is not required to be only database. It can be anything. It's not only database, but in our current context, whenever we are speaking about DSL is specific to a DB. That is correct. DSL is specific to DB. For example, I told already SQL. We call everything as SQL. It doesn't matter. Structured query language. That is a domain specific language, which is specified to MySQL. I cannot use the same syntax with Oracle because that is not how they define the DSL. Okay, they have their own DSL. You need to follow the rules. You need to form the query as per their rules, as per the DSL. So Shahan, did I answer your question?
yeah, Harish.
Okay, cool.
Understood.
Okay, any other questions, guys? If we don't have any other questions, we can wrap up the session and we can connect tomorrow again. Right, as I promised, I'll try to create a session on DB. Okay, because from our conversation I understood that some of the guys are having some information, some communication gap with the. I can frame like there is an issue understanding the DB concept. Okay, we'll try to have a session on that if time permits. Yes, and thank you for joining today. And for your information, I already provided the Gmail. If you have any doubts when you are implementing in your daytime, you can try to reach me, and I'll try to answer as soon as possible. If not possible, I will try to discuss this the question in the next day's class. Okay, in the first half. Sure. Let me stop the sharing. Okay. I'm ending the session, guys, and I'll try to share this with you. Thank you. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you, Harish.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, Harish.